Hello, friends. How are you guys? Happy hump day. It is, my goodness, it is a gorgeous day outside. This is why April is my favorite month, okay? Because we get the most perfect days. There's not a cloud in the sky out there. And this whole entire presentation I'm about to do is on pollen. But my God, are the flowers and the trees and the colors not gorgeous right now? The leaves on the trees are like a new green color, the light green color. Gosh, that with the blue, the deep blue sky, you can't be in a bad mood unless you have really bad allergies. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Okay. So I want to show you the pollen history. We're going to go through a lot of things on the pollen. This is the pollen calendar for this month, and this is the data that we get from Atlanta Allergy Clinic, who I actually did a story on how they collect the pollen count a few years ago. They have this big contraption outside that spins all day. It basically collects air and collects a pollen sample in like a little microscopic, I don't even know what you call those, container, if you will, and then they count the pollen that way, okay? Every single day this month so far, except for Monday, was at extreme pollen count. Now, the reason that the count was so far down on Monday, and I'm going to show you, this is their website, is because we got all that rain. And you can see our levels have recovered, like we're back into the high range, but not nearly what we were last week. Last week we were in like above 4,000 the entire week. That is crazy. So I just wanted to show you some pollen history, okay? January, obviously, there's little to no pollen. February, we had a really warm February. Let me see if I can bring this down. So we started to actually see some moderate levels in February. Then it got chilly again in March. Usually the peak season starts in the last week of March, and that's exactly what we saw this year. Let me go to last year. Last March, exact same last March, okay? Here's last April, just to give you guys some perspective. The first week, extreme pollen count, like we saw this week. And then we start to see only a few days where we're in the thousands. And most of the rest of April does look like there's a high count, but not nearly as high as the first week, okay? So just to give you guys some perspective, that's kind of where we're headed. We're almost at the end of the extreme pollen count, although it will likely stay high through the end of the month. The reason, again, that level has dropped in the last 3 days and you're seeing some relief and there's probably not just that coat of yellow on everything, is we got a significant amount of rain on Sunday and Monday. We had 2.9 inches of rain. That was almost a record. And that was almost as much rain as we saw the entire month of March. So that really helped wash the pollen levels out. But again, now it's been 2 days. It's been sunny. It was breezy yesterday, and that has really helped the pollen to come back. We're over 1,000 again. And really, the types of pollen are important because not all the pollen actually causes allergies. So these are the levels today. Weeds, believe it or not, ragweed is that pollen that makes everything itch. Have you ever been outside like doing yard work and all of a sudden you're itchy all over? Your legs are itchy. You ever sat down in the grass and then your legs get itchy? That's actually ragweed pollen. And it's at extreme levels today. So I would not recommend yard work today. Usually the ragweed pollen shoots up right after we get heavy rain. So you might want to wait until tomorrow if you need to cut the grass or do yard work. I bet you won't be as itchy. Tree pollen, that's the yellow pollen that coats everything. Grass pollen usually doesn't get to high levels here in Georgia, but we do see moderate levels of grass pollen, and that's that itchy kind of nasty pollen. And then the mold pollen doesn't really impact many allergies, which is the good news. So what does impact pollen in terms of the weather conditions? Well, believe it or not, temperatures have a big impact on pollen. Warm nights, if the temperature's above about 45 degrees at night, these spores on the trees, they won't close up, okay? So then it stays open, so the pollen actually continues to be let out by the trees at night. When you have cold nights, the spores close up. So that actually keeps the pollen at bay. So like this morning, we had a pretty chilly morning. That probably will help with the pollen count for tomorrow, okay? Also, stretches of dry weather, you guys know that. And then if we see not heavy rain, but light rain, like 0.1, 0.2, even 0.3 inches of rain, followed by a warm day the next day, that is really just going to pop the pollen off because that's really going to help all of the plants grow. Low pollen count, nights near freezing. So any night really under 40 degrees, those spores are going to close up. And then heavy rain, like the rain we just saw, will cause temporary relief. Now, I bet you're asking, and if you're not, I'm going to tell you, are we going to see more rain? The answer is yes. Tomorrow actually is a first alert weather day for evening storms. So tomorrow through the day, it's going to be dry, so the count will probably still be high, maybe even extreme tomorrow. But watch what happens tomorrow afternoon. Start to see some spotty showers and maybe even some thunder in the mountains. And then we see another wave of thunder northeast Georgia in the mountains. Then we all get some pretty heavy rain moving in after about 9 p.m. tomorrow. So as you're headed to bed, heavy rain moving through. Won't last long, but it will help wash out the pollen temporarily. Also, there's just a low end threat for some damaging winds as this initial line moves through. Then on Friday, we see spotty showers move back, and it's going to be very breezy and cooler. I don't think the rain on Friday will help out much, but that rain that we get Thursday night might help. So this is the current potential rainfall. So this really paints a good picture. Areas north of Atlanta are going to get possibly over an inch of rain. That will help with the pollen count for the mountains in North Georgia. But south of I-20, only 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 inches. That's actually going to cause the pollen to be worse because it's not really going to wash much out. So the heavier rainfall totals certainly will help the pollen, but south of the city, this rain actually may make the pollen worse towards the end of the week. So here's my forecast. It's hard to predict. I do think tomorrow we'll see extreme pollen count because we're already at 1,000 today. It's going to be a really kind of beautiful, sunny, warm afternoon, and it won't be as cold tonight. We'll generally be above 40 degrees or right around 40. No, actually way above 40. I think our low is 49 today. So extreme pollen levels tomorrow. Friday, either moderate or high, and then back to high on Saturday. We are going to see a cool off into the weekend. So that actually might help the pollen. If you're planning on going to the Dogwood Festival this weekend, see your morning lows on Saturday and Sunday morning. They're in the 30s and low 40s, so that could help the pollen count, but it is going to be really sunny and really nice. Saturday, 62 degrees. That's going to be cool, but we're right back up to 72 on Sunday. I do not remember the last Sunday where we didn't have storms moving through. So a full weekend of beautiful weather. Back into the low 80s next week. I will say we're in for another cool shot next week, but I'm not seeing the potential for much rain next week. So I bet that pollen count is going to stay high at least next week. By May, let me just move this back over again. So let me just show you May of last year. So May is usually when we see that count. For the first 2 weeks of May, still considered high, but we really see that count start to get a lot better in May. Okay, that's everything you need to know about pollen, guys. I don't know if I'm just, when you convince yourself you're sick, I have been talking about pollen so much, I feel a little itchiness in my throat, so. The power of the mind, if you will. Okay, guys, get outside. Look at this beautiful day. My goodness. My goodness. Go enjoy it. And I will see you bright and early tomorrow. Atlanta News First at 6 a.m.